me at the Musial with Alan and Daniel. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. Everyone come gather round, listen to your favorite sound. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We'll talk the games and all the rest, about the team that we love best. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We're gonna talk about the Cardinals all night long.
Good evening and welcome into another edition of Meet Me at Musial. I'm your host, Daniel Shoptaw at C70. Alan Medlock's still doing the coaching thing. Talked to him this week. The season is wrapping up. Things are on the upswing and seem to be playing pretty well going into their regional tournament. That should be next week. We'll have Alan back with us in the beginning of June, most likely. But right now, tonight, we've got an old friend. I like to say that. Richard McGill, who you probably know from the Play and Catch podcast that was out a year or so ago with his son Truman. He's also writing over at a Substack. Richard, how are you tonight?
I know I knew early on you were going to go with the old thing just because I'm one of the few guests you're going to have that's older than you. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I get enough of those slings and arrows. I have to throw some of them occasionally as well.
No, hey, I'm doing well. Um, after a sweep of the Pirates and currently leading the Dodgers in that opening game of the series. Did you think we would be here on May 1st?
No, not at all. I don't
Yeah.
think anybody did. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah. I didn't either, obviously. I think it kind of tongue in cheek, but I predicted 64 wins for the season. So,
I was more optimistic than that. I still thought, I don't know. I 70 seemed low to me.
yeah.
I would have liked to think in the 75 to 80 range, but I also understood why people would say because if the wheels fell off, it wouldn't take too much to get to 70. And there's no guarantee that that's not what's going to happen here, right? I mean, a good first month is a good first month, but there's still some underlying problems with this team that don't have you very confident that they're gonna stay that high flying.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think still the pitching is pretty suspect. You've seen, I think the starting rotations getting by on some smoke and mirrors, but wins are wins, and so you take them and it accelerates. I think the thing that I like most is these young players are doing well, but they're
Mhm.
figuring out how to win. And so even when you're not expecting it, having that group that's they're learning how to win is really going to pay off, come maybe they compete next year, but I think everybody kind of projects 2028 as that first year that they're really going to start competing again. And so for your JJ Weatherholds and seeing what Jordan Walker's doing now, and just some of these young players that, I mean, they're winning the close ones. They're scrappy late in games, and I think that's going to go a long way in the future. That I think a lot of people are kind of overlooking.
Yeah, and I don't it's really hard for me to put a finger on why this team is so much more interesting than the last couple of years. I mean, and I guess not even just interesting, it may not be just the right thing, but the scrappiness, the idea that we're not giving up on this team because they've shown us that they can come back. I mean, it's a lot of the same team. You do, and it feels like to me that if we start assigning too much blame to Nolan Arenado and Sonny Gray and Wilson Contreras and even
Yeah,
Brendan Donovan, we're probably not seeing the full picture. But it is interesting that this team has an energy just watching it that I don't think it's had since, I don't know when. Because they did have those veterans there that, for better or for worse, didn't necessarily have that kind of exciting cachet around them. You expected great things. You didn't get surprised by great things.
yeah, I agree, and I think one thing that I've kind of noticed too is, and maybe he's kind of feeding off the energy of these young players, but I haven't seen
Mhm,
Ollie as happy and as excited as he is this year. And I think some of it is the excitement of seeing some of these young guys come through in crucial situations or whatever it is. But you
mhm.
see him after somebody has a big hit and they get back to the dugout, or in the, as he's waiting on everybody after they shake hands after the game. I mean, there's a different level of just how he's carrying himself and how he's showing emotion maybe. And I think it's all just feeding off of each other. I mean, you think about just how much this team cares about a Jordan Walker, and you see the
Mhm.
struggle and just all the negative stuff that he's taken on the last 3 years, and then to see him do what he's done. I mean, he just picked up his third hit of the night just now, and so you see that, and you can't help but be excited and happy for him. But I just don't remember Ollie showing it like he has this year. And he's a young coach, even though he's coached for 5 seasons or whatever it is now. But he's
Yeah,
still young as far as the coaching fraternity. So, um, I think he's the right fit for this group. I mean, I was happy to see the extension when he got it, and I think some of that is paying off in how these guys are playing.
it was very interesting that the broadcast put up a stat a couple nights ago, I think, that showed that Ollie is now the 6th longest tenured manager in baseball, which just seems crazy, right? I mean,
Seems like
one,
he
that's
just
just
started. Yeah, I mean,
exactly, exactly. A lot of that's a function of just teams, you know, rotating through managers a lot, maybe a little bit more than they used to, and we've seen a couple of, like Alex Cora and Bob
right.
Thompson get fired this week that would have probably been ahead of him, definitely Cora would have been. So, it is but it's still, I mean,
Yeah.
we keep talking about this, yeah, this newness, but this is the first, I mean, 22, obviously he comes in and has success, but that's also a year that's completely, it's Goldie, that's Arenado, that's Pujols coming back. There's so
Yeah.
much going on, and I've always felt like he did a good job of, keeping the wagons in line, and I thought he deserved, a good bit of credit because especially the Pujols situation early in the year could have been,
Oh yeah.
a terrible thing, and it wasn't. But 23, 24, 25, they didn't win and they felt like they should be winning. And so I've got to feel like there's a little bit of relief going into this year because he's not expected to win. He's expected to help develop these players. And, the winning is kind of that, icing on the cake that he's gotten this first month.
I mean, and you've hit on a lot of it. I think the expectation helps. The hey, we're in a rebuild. You know, go out there. Let's see some improvement, but you don't have to win. So I do think that that's a big part of it. You mentioned those guys, Goldschmidt and Arenado and Sonny Gray. I mean, in a way, those weren't excitable guys, and
Yeah. Yeah.
there was a lot that was said when, that season when Arenado was like, look, I'm not a leader, that kind of thing. And maybe there was a little bit of taking on the personality of those veteran guys. I mean, Goldie's a lead by example, obviously. I
Mhm.
think he was more vocal maybe in the clubhouse than we would think, but very quiet, unassuming, just go about his business kind of guy. Arnado same way, Sonny Gray the same way. And so maybe maybe that, I don't know, pressure or the weight of those guys is gone, and you're taking on the personality of, I mean, Jordan Walker's always been a fun guy, but he's never been able to have fun because he's
Mhm.
struggled. And so, you see him and Win coming on, after a kind of a slow start, and how close those two have been, and just the incredible start by JJ Weatherholt. My gosh. I mean, to have the expectations that he's had, and to throw him into the leadoff spot from day one, and to see him doing what he's doing is amazing. And it's this young group that, hey, if this is our team, we're going to lead it, even though we may not know what we're doing all the time. And I think some of that's coming through. Maybe some of Ollie's true personalities coming through too. And you've got different front office management that
Yeah.
I mean, Mo did a great job for a long time, and I mean everybody's got their opinions, but he's stuffy. I mean, kind of comes across stuffy, and so just from an organization standpoint, they're less stuffy, I guess, and I think you're seeing a happier Ollie, and I think they're doing a good job of coaching. Maybe not, maybe they just don't have the weapons on the pitching side yet, but what Brant Brown's done from a hitting standpoint and the way these guys are attacking has been fun to watch.
And I mean, we have to give credit to the fact that there are more coaches now than there were
Yeah.
too, right? I mean, that's part of that development, focus is that they've built up that staff both at the minor league level, but also the major league level. They brought up Chenoweth from the minor leagues as a hitting, assistant hitting coach, or I'm not sure if that's exactly his title or if it's something else, but a guy that has some success with some of these guys in the minors can really communicate. And it does feel like they're trying to hit them where they are. And so again, I don't want it to sound like this was all Nolan's fault because I don't think it was. I mean, if you
Yeah, I
want
agree.
to, I could say I have this. It's not a real theory, but I have looked at it a little bit, and the fact that Wilson Contreras came up and won the World Series with the Cubs in '16, and then they went downhill. He comes to St. Louis, we go downhill. He goes to Boston, they've gone downhill. I just think that maybe Wilson promised a lot to get to that World Series, and now he's doomed to wander the earth, bringing down teams. Hopefully not, because we always enjoyed Wilson Contreras
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
but
He definitely one that you hate as an opponent and love when he's on your team.
yeah, yeah,
Um, you know, I, I contend that he was the wrong fit at the wrong time,
mm,
or for the Cardinals, they were looking to replace Yachty, and not that anybody expected him to be the kind of catcher or game management or whatever that Yachty was, but he was the guy that they signed at that point. And what was it, 5 weeks into the season, they're talking about taking him out of the catcher spot.
right,
And
right.
he hit well when he was here. He's just fun and kind of was a leader, I guess. Was
Mhm.
certainly an emotional leader. But yeah, I think there is something to the selling his soul early on. That's
And
funny.
and I think that maybe I don't know, it is like you've talked about it too, the whole change of focus, the whole change of personality. It is that idea that we don't have to scramble around and try, and if something's going wrong, we gotta throw a Band-Aid on it. We've gotta do this, we gotta do that because we gotta keep the ship afloat. The ship is sunk, we're trying, we're building a new ship this kind of type of thing. And I mean, I guess that changes the atmosphere as well. I don't know. I mean, I want the best for all those guys. It looks like Nolan has started to click out in Arizona, which is cool to see. Um, but it does feel like for whatever reason, this team right now is on a path that it needs to be on. And again, I don't, how much are we reading into 1 month? But at some point in time, especially when you look at the fact it's a 6 month season, you've got to stop saying this is a small sample size.
Yeah, and I've kind of hit on that a little bit. I've written twice on Substack this week, and very careful in small sample sizes. I don't buy
Mhm.
into those a lot. I put out something tonight that kind of really highlighted that. It was a piece on Liberatore, and he's obviously proving me exactly wrong as I expected. But it was like I
Way
don't
to
read
take
too
one for the
much.
team.
Yeah, I didn't, in it, I think I said I don't read too much into the fast start of the team, nor should I read too much into his slow start. And so,
Mhm.
I mean, he's one of the worst starting pitchers in baseball this first month. And now we're seeing tonight um, kind of what he looked like in the first half of last year. And so, you also got to think he's still what, 25? I mean, he's still got hills and valleys that he's going to hit, but all of his numbers are worse right now. But he's throwing a gem against the best team in baseball. I mean, it's hard to argue after what they've done the last 2 years, and then they add Kyle Tucker, and of course Edwin Diaz is on the injured list. But the Dodgers are a great hitting team, and he's looking great tonight. So
Yeah,
that's probably part of. I'll tell a quick story real quick. Back
good.
in '91, I think it was, when the Braves were in the World Series. Old
Mhm.
friend Lonnie Smith was on the Braves, and I had a couple of friends that I've known my whole life that we were in a college writing class together at the time, and I think it was around Game 3 of the World Series, and Bobby Cox started Lonnie Smith, and I'm like, why in the world? I mean, he was terrible that year. I think he had been terrible late in the season. I'm like, why in the world would you start Lonnie Smith? He hits a big home run, and
Mhm.
of course, my friends are just, hi, that's what you get, that kind of thing. And I said, all right, well, they got what they're going to get out of him. Don't play him again. Starts the next night, hits another home run. Repeat, starts a third night in a row, hits a third home run. And so between me and those two guys, sometimes I do things and my friends will look at me like Lonnie Smith. And I'm like, yeah, that's why I'm saying it. I'm trying to get the reverse jinx, or, if you will. So
Yeah.
there was highlighting some facts about Liberatore, but also hoping that with my luck, it would turn things around for him. And so far, so good. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, he
Yeah.
he's had a rough go of it. One of the worst K percentages, one of the worst XFIPs, one of the worst FIPs. All his numbers are down, and that's worse than among all starting pitchers in baseball. And so, I think his K percentage is around 14%. Just and the Cardinals starting pitching is 30th in baseball in
Right.
K percentage. And so all the swing and miss that they've talked about over the years, I think is coming, but you have to develop it. And
Mhm.
that's why Heim's done what he's done in the minor leagues. And it's not just the pitchers that they picked up, it's the development staff and the coaching and the scouts and all that. So it's coming, but it certainly is not on display at the big league club right now.
Well, no, I mean, especially the rotation is basically the same rotation that you had last year. You've
Yeah.
just, swapped Sonny Gray for Dustin May, and Dustin May's not striking out people at
No.
that level, so that's not surprising. And then the bullpen is, again, a lot of the same things out there. So yeah, it's not. You're right. I mean, if you could go easily get swing and miss on the market, the Cardinals wouldn't have worried so much about trying to develop it, but you can't. And so they went out and they've done their work to develop it, and we'll see if they can. I mean, but it's going to take a year or two to get that kind of stuff starting to come up. It's going to be very exciting when it does happen because we are not used to it at all. Um, but yeah, I mean, we've saw. I was watching the game earlier, when Liberatore was struggling there in the third inning. That was even Chip Carey was talking about how, you get to 2 strikes and you can't put them away
Hmm.
with a team, especially like the Dodgers, that's often gonna hurt you. And that's just the case that the Cardinals have gotten some fortunate bounces. The defense has been stronger than I think a lot of us expected it to be, even knowing how good Mason Wynn and Victor Scott are to add Nathan Church into that mix and
Yeah.
Nolan Gorman to be like one of the best third basemen, like I think with outs above average as of right now, which
Yeah.
nobody
Yeah.
saw that coming. So they've been able to work around it, but I mean those are the indicators, right? That's what we were talking about earlier, that you're enjoying the ride, but you kind of have this feeling that it ain't gonna last.
Yeah. I mean, you can, hard hit balls, again, in a short sample size, they might go right at guys. But
Mhm.
when you play 162 games, everything equals out. I think you're going to see McGreevy regress some in the next 2 months. I mean, he gets hit so hard, but just, and I don't want to say lucky because he's they're not squaring it up perfectly because he changes speed so much. But a 91-mile-an-hour fastball, he can't get it by guys. That kind of stuff is going to catch up to you. And so, I like all the pitchers. I don't have a lot of faith in them. But yeah, the defense. I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, the defense. JJ Weatherholt's been one of the best second basemen defensively in the league, and I've been very critical of Jordan Walker's defense in the last couple of years. I thought there was no way he just didn't have the instincts for it. I mean, you see guys like Tommy Edman and Brendan Donovan get thrown in the outfield without ever having played outfield, and they're fine, or if not great.
Mhm.
Um, and then Jordan Walker, who's this great athlete, and yeah, it's kind of hard maybe getting in sync in a 6'6", 6'7" frame, but he just looked so bad out there, and his instincts were bad, and just dumb throws and things like that. And I tell you what, I'm blown away by the offense, but I'm more blown away by the defense this year.
Mhm.
He leads the league in outfield assist with 4. Nobody else has more than 2. Um, he's making the right throws almost every time. This week he kind of unleashed one that he shouldn't, but didn't hurt the team.
Yeah.
He's taking great routes. He's making some really tough catches, and so I just and maybe it's the psychological part of it. Hey, I'm hitting. Everything else is going to come to me a little better. I'm not. He seems. I think from a psychological standpoint, he's in a better place too, and I think that all
Mhm.
plays into it. But we really, really need to give our props to Walker on the strides he's made defensively as well. It really gets kind of overlooked in what he's done offensively, which has been great.
Yeah, it has. I felt like he was starting to improve last year, but you're right. He had such a hole that he had dug for himself. I mean, and again, learning the position really at the major league level to some
Yeah,
degree. He
yeah.
didn't have a whole lot of reps at the minor leagues at that rate. But yeah, he's really been incredible. It just feels everything about Jordan Walker this year. It's I'm not always great about this, body language and such, but everything about him
Mhm.
feels more relaxed, feels more calm. Just looking at him, he looks like he's comfortable up there, both in the field and at the plate. And I don't feel like we saw that last year. Last year, it just kind of felt, it always had that feeling like he was just trying to keep his head above water. And now he feels like, he's swimming. He knows what he's doing. And he's kind of adjusted, that we heard Brant Brown on the broadcast tonight talking about, hey, they saw saw something in his swing and or his stance and that needed to change over the last few weeks because he'd been struggling. And like you said, 3 hits tonight and hitting the ball hard. I think that's the big thing too, because we didn't see those kind of adjustments. We could see him go, like 2 or 3 days and be really great, and then he'd be terrible for 2 weeks. We haven't really seen him pull himself out of a slump with a tweak or anything like that.
Yeah, you knew pitchers were going to make adjustments on him, and you could see that he was starting to press a little too much. He was showing some frustration that really he's had every reason to show in the past and really hadn't shown. But I think it's because even in his own mind, his expectations were higher, and so during that
Mhm.
little 10-day slump or whatever he had. I mean, you saw him slam his bat on the ground or whatever. And
Yeah.
I can vividly remember, and because Truman and one of his friends was at the game last Saturday, so I kind of paid closer attention to it
Mhm.
as they were both texting me throughout the game. And I could see, he started laying off that sweeper or slider, and then he had a hard hit line drive to right field. And it's like,
Mhm.
okay, once when you see him working the whole field is when he's kind of right. And you've seen a little bit of that even tonight. He's gone opposite field, but you
Yeah.
saw it in Pittsburgh, and so I think that's very encouraging. I know a lot of people when he started to slump, like, oh, the old Jordan's back. Well, you know, everybody, I mean, he's 23 years old still.
Mhm.
It's like, he's what, 4.5 months older than JJ Weatherholt. Nobody's going to freak out if Weatherholt slumps. And I realize, quite a bit of difference in major league experience there. But um, the the way that he's been able to make adjustments on the adjustments the pitchers have made is, I think, one of the more encouraging things that we've seen.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun to watch that and to have him start to show. I mean, maybe maybe not even, although that first run was pretty close to as much as we could ever expect. But even if he's not that, which he probably isn't overall, I mean, just to be able to, again, when he's not swinging at pitches that are in the other's batter's box, um, and he can hit, if he could hit, I mean, right now he's hitting over 300, but even if he's hitting 270 with 20 or 25 home runs, that's a great year for Jordan Walker, right? And now he's at 9 home runs. It feels like that's almost underselling what he could possibly do this year.
Yeah, and I think he's seen that his strength is there whether he swings, max speed or not. I mean, we've seen home runs that are over 100 miles an hour that he's hit this year, and it doesn't even look like he swung hard.
Mhm.
And I think he can get to balls easier if he's not kind of over, that max effort. And I think he's just found a place that, and you've heard him talk, with uh, Jim Hayes and others, Danny as well, and where he's not overthinking things. He's just keeping it simple. Everybody made a big deal about him going to drive line. You know, I don't know how much they do on the psychological side. Obviously, they're well known for what they do mechanically, but
Mm.
I think if that's the other thing is that from a psychological standpoint, he's gotten out of the slump, and I think that's more encouraging than the hot start to me because anybody can have a good 2-3 week stretch. Yeah, and you saw it a little bit when he came up, as much as he was hitting the ball on the ground as a rookie. Um, but I saw somebody post something today that even in that month and where he had the 13 game hit streak or whatever, his
Mhm.
weighted runs created plus was under 100 for that
Oh,
month.
yeah, because he was all he
And
was doing
now,
was singling.
yeah, and now it's what in the 150s, I think, coming into
Yeah.
tonight. So I'm not saying he's a 150 guy. I mean, I'm a big weighted runs created plus guy, but man, if he is, gosh, what a win it'll be for him, for the club, and for fans.
Yeah. It is incredible. Now, I wanna man, there's a lot of different angles I wanna go ahead here, so we'll just go ahead and scattershot it, but Um, Chip Carey mentioned this again, and I don't always have the thing I usually have it muted, but I was listening to Chip tonight, and, he made some good points. And the fact that the Cardinals, and I'm looking at it right now, I don't know if it's up to date or if this is before tonight's game. Cardinals are tied for 4th in baseball in home runs.
Yeah, that's
They're just
crazy.
2 behind the Dodgers for the NL lead. I mean, granted, yeah, Jordan Walker has 9, but I mean, we were complaining about I'm not complaining, but we were kind of questioning. We knew this offense had maybe some potential, but it was like, are they going to score enough runs? Now, the question is still, are they going to score enough runs? But that's mainly because the bullpen keeps giving up so many of them.
Yeah.
But, right now, they've put, they've, as of right now, I think they're probably at 0 on their run differential. They've kind of dug themselves out of that
Mhm.
hole. Um, but to be that kind of power team again in a stadium that doesn't support it with a lineup that we weren't 100% sure what power was gonna be there, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, completely unexpected by me, and even seeing that stat, I saw somebody put that up tonight. That still surprised me, even watching and
Mhm.
kind of knowing what some guys have done. So, um, and I think some guys are just starting to really hit a groove. I mean, you talk about Ivan Herrera, kind of slow start, and you could see him start to get it. I mentioned to Truman, I'm like, look. I think we even rewound and watched an at bat, and I'm like, he is just off. I said he's getting ready to go on a run, and it was like 2 days later he hits his first home run, and then just doubles and home runs and hard hit balls. Burleson was what at 3 home runs for the better part of the first month, and you've seen Gorman. He's been a defensive first guy. It's like his offense just hasn't been there. And the ball that he hit tonight, which was a high fastball, is not one that he typically hits out. And he's another guy. I told Truman tonight, I'm like, he and Walker had the most work that they were doing in the offseason to try to get right.
Mm.
Jordan's was, I think, a little more publicized because of Driveline. But I remember when Brent Brown was hired and some changes were made, and I think right after Hein Bloom was kind of announced, right after the season was over last year, it was the work that they were going to be doing in person with both guys. And I told Sherman earlier, I said Walker struggled in spring training. I mean, he did not look great.
Yeah.
And it was making, he's figuring out in game speed these adjustments that he made in the off season. And I think, maybe Gorman's always going to be streaky, but I think his swing's different. I mean, you can tell it's different. It's shorter. And I think that he may be able to start getting a little more consistent and I mean, the power's obvious. He's just got to make contact, and I think we're seeing that a little bit more. I also think that he should play more often. As good as his defense has been, they've been playing Arias and letting Gorman DH a little too much. I think when he plays more on both sides, he's going to be better offensively. But obviously, opinion, nothing to base that on. But
Yeah.
I didn't think, I didn't think Nathan Church was going to have 3 home runs at this point. I didn't think he'd have any.
Much less
So
2 in one game.
yeah, and taking one away in the same game. So
Right.
how do you lose that game? I mean,
I don't know.
it's the Nathan Church game. You can't lose that.
Yeah.
But and that was the game Sherman and his buddy were at. But
What a game.
yeah. And so, the home run thing, complete surprise. Don't think it's sustainable, but Paez was pretty terrible for the first 3 weeks of the season, and then he's been red hot for 8 to 10 days. And so, everybody but Victor Scott seems to be hitting, and it's frustrating. I love Victor Scott. I just think he's got such game-changing speed, but man, he's just not getting on base at all. But everybody else has been a surprise. Yeah.
Yeah, pulled up. I did Gorman's game log for the last 2 weeks, basically, and he's still only a WRC plus of 88. Of course, again, that doesn't count tonight with another home run, but 2 home runs, 241 average. I think that's. I mean, walk rate's at 6.8. K rate was at 23.7. I mean, if that's Nolan Gorman, that's not bad, right? I mean, it's not, hey, first round draft pick Nolan Gorman type of numbers, but if you're seeing that kind of thing, the occasional pop, the less strikeouts, we've seen him get some big hits, just singles or whatever, doubles or anything like that. If you're getting some sort of just even average production, even if he's up to that, that WRC plus to 100, I mean, that's a big step from what we've been getting.
See, and I hadn't looked at his numbers lately, and when I did, I was looking for something specific. I didn't even notice that his K rate was in the 23% range, and to me,
well, that's just for the last 2 weeks. Now,
I
don't know
okay,
about the whole year.
yeah, that makes sense. Okay, but if he could maintain something close to that, then he's going to be much higher than 100 weighted runs created plus. I mean, he'll be above average hitter. He's a guy that's you think of as a 35% K percentage, and so again, I think the stroke is shorter. He's quicker to the ball. Just there's less mechanically there. Um, I mean, if he can go on a run, then he's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah. While we're talking about the offense, we ought to probably talk about the most recent news in the fact that there is now a home run celebration, which
Yeah.
the Cardinals were kind of lacking. I know Derek Gould wrote a story not like a week or so ago how the team was just trying to still kind of try to figure one out, that they've tried to do some things here and there. They've got a big medallion with what I've got that dog in me, I think is
Yeah.
what it was.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have to feel like it had to have been inspired by the Bark in the Park game that was last weekend.
I didn't think of that. Yeah, I remember Derek having something, and then I saw something on Twitter yesterday or the day before, like, why don't they have anything? Because you see
Mhm.
every team do it. I mean,
Right.
one of my favorite is the Mariners, with their
Mhm, mhm.
um,
Big
kind of
Trident.
yeah, yeah. And so may, again, maybe Nolan Arenado didn't want something. I don't want to put it back on him, but um, no, I think that fits the personality of this team, that they have something like that. And I mean, you see
Mhm,
them when you watch the reaction of some of the teammates when guys get back in the dugout after hitting one, and Sherman pointed out, kind of the face or expression JJ had when Gorman got back in the dugout there in that first inning. And so
mhm,
again, I think it's just this overall funness, if you will, of what the team is and the youthful spirit. I mean, they're one of the youngest teams in the league
mhm.
as far as
Right.
average, and maybe the youngest everyday lineup. And so I mean, I just think you have to lean into that, and the whole let the kids have fun kind of thing. I mean, don't not to the point where you're showing your opponent up, but
Mhm.
let
Right.
them have fun. There's nothing wrong with doing something inside the dugout, and if that lets them relax and enjoy things a little more than they are, then have at it. I like seeing it tonight.
Yeah, I think that it's, I mean, again, it has to come naturally. You can't really
Right,
force those kind of things
right.
because then it's just cheesy. I know that like Derek's articles, they tried to do the burger phone a couple years ago, but that was more about, like beforehand instead of afterwards type of a
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, this we'll see how long this lasts. It doesn't have the city tie that some of the other ones do, but that's fine. It's I think it works just well. And including the fact that apparently the team is barking after the home runs too. So,
Oh, I didn't
which
realize that either. Yeah.
yeah, which as SEC people, we kind of get a little bit maybe shell shocked when we hear that. Get the Georgia
Don't
fans are back around.
please don't bring up college baseball tonight. Last,
Uh,
yeah, I was going to lead off with a hottie toddy, and then I saw, yeah, your Razorbacks were up 6-0 early. I thought, yeah, I hope he
Oh,
doesn't say anything.
I
Yeah,
like that because the
yeah.
Razorbacks have not played like the Razorbacks much this year. I went and actually had a chance to go out and see them on Wednesday. Went up
Oh
and
yeah, I remember you saying something.
yeah,
Yeah.
the kids and I went and watched the ball game, and they were playing Northwestern Louisiana, something like that. And it took them till it was the 7th or 8th inning before they actually took the lead and wound up winning like 6-2 or something like that. Nothing. And I'm sure that they didn't have the A squad in, but still, I'm glad to hear that they're doing well. And if it's at the expense of Ole Miss, well,
Yeah, I knew that was coming.
I'll take it. So,
The for any baseball fan, situational hitting is a big deal, and Ole Miss has to be the worst situational hitting team that's ranked in the top 25. I mean, it is strikeout or home run, it seems like. So, um, I think there was a lot of strikeouts early in this game.
probably so.
Yeah.
But the home runs may come. They may come, and that's kind of what we're used to as Cardinal fans this year, right? Because no lead is safe. No lead is safe whether they're behind or whether they're ahead. And
Yeah.
the Cardinals currently up 4-2, but until you can get to comfortably to Riley O'Brien, I don't think anybody puts any W's next to the game till the final out is going on.
No, and again, the reason I was so down on this team, I mean, I thought the offense would be average.
Mhm.
But I just thought, man, the bullpen's terrible. The rotation's not there. I didn't think the bullpen would be as bad as it is. O'Brien's been fantastic, and it's funny because when they first acquired him, I thought, man, his stuff is
Mhm.
unbelievable, and it just nothing clicked for about a year and a half, and now we're
Well,
really
injuries
seeing,
too.
yeah, right, right, and so. But then you have guys that just were complete surprises last year, like Matt Swanson, and he's
Mhm.
just, I don't know if his ERA is under
Yeah.
10 yet. Obviously, the Ryan Stanek thing has not worked out at all. Um, it's gosh, he throws hard, but that's it. I think George Soriano has been very good. I think he's a guy that it's again, if they're not in it at the trade deadline, there's some guys you can flip, and I think Soriano could be one. But yeah, I don't know. This is bad. I don't know what his. I know he was out of options when they acquired
Mhm.
him, but I don't even know how old he is. I mean, he could be 28, he could be 34. I don't know. But yeah, Stanek and Swanson, and then you know
He's
Brule and
27.
okay, okay. Um, he's somebody I'd certainly keep around then. Um,
Mhm.
but and I mean, not expensive either, obviously.
No, no.
Uh, but yeah, the bullpen's just man. Romero's been good. You expect him to be traded at the deadline, but I think JoJo's been really good so far. He's had one or two hiccups, but bullpens are volatile, and
Yeah.
um, I the thing that I didn't like about this bullpen was you didn't have a lot of guys with options, and so you couldn't ride that Memphis train, that Memphis shuttle a whole lot. You've already seen, there's a DFA today to get Dobbins back down, and I can't even remember who came back up. Was it Schuster?
Well, Schuster came back. Schuster was DFA the last time he was up, and
Right,
then he got
right,
added back to the 40 man because nobody ever filled that spot, and then
yeah,
they brought him back up. So,
okay. And so, I know people were like, want change immediately. There's not a lot of change that's going to come from the bullpen. You just
no.
have to hope some of these guys get better. But yeah, if you can get it to JoJo, or well, to JoJo, who's usually the eighth inning guy, but if you can get it to Riley O'Brien, I feel pretty confident.
Yeah, JoJo to me, and I'm pulling up his baseball savant page, kind of converted a little bit. It's because there's a lot of blue there. It feels like he's maybe gotten a little bit lucky. Which, to be fair, I think if you look at some of his numbers over the last couple of years, his results have been better than the underlying metrics. So,
Yeah, yeah,
that doesn't mean that can't continue.
yeah. He's
And
he's
then
not a guy.
definitely, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. No, I was going to say
No,
he's in that lane of the starting pitcher. He's not going to get a lot of strikeouts. I mean, he's
right.
the ones he does get are going to be against some lefties, if he can get a slider going. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's a lot of softly hit or hit right at guys, but
Mhm.
it's he's still kind of he's still kind of doing it at least through a month. So
Well, and
again, he's had one or two.
comparatively to the rest of
Oh
the
yeah,
bullpen, he's very, very
yeah,
good. So,
yeah.
yeah. Um, so yeah, I talked about in one of the shows, maybe, and I may have even written about it. We talked about once the Cardinals had gotten Soriano and, he has no options, it really felt like they were going to lean into this idea of, it didn't matter. They weren't trying to win every game, like, or at least not the way they have the last couple of years. So they weren't going to do that churn as much. They were going
Yeah,
to,
yeah.
let guys work it out if, and they had enough guys that they probably could space around. They thought that they wouldn't have to get a fresh arm up here. Now we've had a couple situations, especially that Mariner series kind of wipes some arms out and,
Hmm.
and things of that nature. But for the most part, I think they're just gonna kind of, they've got guys down there that think they can give them length, and that's another reason they brought Schuster back because he can. Um, and they're gonna go with these guys. It's not gonna be that okay, you're gonna be sending somebody up and down 4 or 5 times. It's gonna be and I think that's proven by the fact that Matt Swanson is still here because I think in a lot of years they would have sent him back to Memphis, see if they could correct something, see if they could get him back on track, and they're just like, no, we'll do it here.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I think there's reasons for that, and I understand it, and I think that it makes sense in a season that you're not necessarily expecting to make the playoffs. You might as well learn on the job.
yeah. I don't fault the approach they've taken.
Hmm.
Part of the problem is they've been winning, and
Right.
so and playing a lot of close games, and so I think it's kind of under a microscope a little more than they expected it to be. But no, I don't fault them for it. I've just seen a lot of chatter this week about, boy, if Heim would fix
Right.
the bullpen. Well,
Hmm.
you're not going to go out and make trades for bullpen pieces. You're just not.
No.
This
No.
team is not in a position to do that, and nor should I don't think they should. And nobody's making trades right now anyway. Now, is it picking
No.
up some guys that are DFA'd or whatever? I mean, that's just you know it's getting the same kind of guys. If they're not working out for other teams, again, they're relievers for a reason. They're not,
Yeah.
and again, it's the reason that bullpens are volatile is because relievers, for the most part, are just not going to be consistent. So,
Yeah.
no, I think this is what it is. Now you may see Ryan Stanek, DFA'd in a month or so if he hasn't turned things around, but there's no rush to do it right now. There's not guys just beating down the door in Memphis to come up and play well. So yeah, I think doing it at this level, letting some of these guys figure it out. There's values the same way, and they're learning how to win the core. Same
Mhm.
thing with some of these bullpen guys. Figure it out. We don't have a lot of options. You've got a long leash. Go out and figure it out.
Well, and it really just goes, like you say, with the long leash. It really goes to what they told Matthew Liberatore last year. They said, "Look, you're going to be here. If you go out and have a bad outing, you don't have to worry. You don't have to be looking over your shoulder. You
Hmm.
don't have to. You're not going to Memphis. You're going to stay here. We'll work on it between times, and you'll make your start the next time." And that made some impact on Liberatore. It looked like, and I think that's a good way for these guys to know that hey, I can go out here, and if I need to work on something I get, or I want to, or hey, I think this might work. And if it doesn't, I don't have to worry about I'm going to go to Memphis. I'm going to be, I'm still going to be here. And I think that's just, again, we talked earlier about how the team is playing with confidence. I think that's some of it, right? Because they know I don't have to be perfect to stay in the big leagues.
Yeah, I agree. And even outside of the bullpen, I mean, you see an Andre Palante have a start like he did this week, or
Hmm.
Kyle Leahy, who's learning how to start at the big league level. They're giving him, kind of that long rant. Okay, you're going to hit some bumps, but go and figure it out. And he got a lot of swings and misses this week. So I think that's the case with pretty much every pitcher. And I mean, you may see one or two guys making that shuttle, but yeah, I think what you see is what you're going to get for the better part of the next 3 months anyway.
As we're watching this on game day, Soriano just got Otani to look at called out on strikes. That had to be a intense situation for everybody involved when you've got Otani up and as the tying run, even if
Well,
it is
see,
just the seventh.
even on a podcast, you're spoiling it for me because I've
I,
got the game pulled up on the computer and apparently my video is about 20 seconds behind game day.
yeah,
So it
I'm
was
sorry. 'Cause
yeah, it was 3-2 and yeah, I just saw the caught looking. So no, that
yeah,
I mean, and again, a good Soriano, a little over an inning pitch tonight.
yeah,
Had to come in
yeah,
the sixth inning and gets the whole seventh. And you got to
yeah,
assume it's Romero. Of course, you've got a lot of lefties coming up for the Dodgers, and
yeah.
then turn it over to JoJo if they've got the lead. So, um, you know, I I think the other thing about the bullpen is early in the season, you've had a lot of the starters not going deep enough. Some of
Mhm.
that because it's early season. Some of it is just getting hit hard.
Yeah.
When I did the Liberatore piece today, he was the opening day starter and he hasn't missed a
Right.
start, but he had not pitched enough innings to be whatever the limit is for being qualified
Oh, wow.
because so I don't know what he is averaging per start, but it's got to be right around 5, if not a little less. And so once these guys can start getting into the 6th inning, I think you'll see the bullpen start to kind of shore up a little more, and because they're overworked right now, even with pretty much an off day each week until this week. I
Mhm.
think they've seen a little bit being overworked. So hopefully that will be the case. And Liberatore got through, I think 5 1/3 tonight,
5 and a
so
third
an
maybe tonight?
improvement. But
Yeah.
yeah, what I say?
Yeah. He's
Yeah,
averaging right at 5 before this one because it
okay,
was 6 starts, 30.1 innings. So, yeah,
okay.
you're
But
right there at
I
5, so
think he,
slightly better than normal.
I think last Sunday maybe he came out in the third or after 3 or maybe
Yeah,
before
or
4 was over.
3 and a
So
third or 3 thirds,
yeah,
somewhere in there. Yeah, yeah. So,
but
yeah,
I think these
I
guys will
agree.
start going deeper. Yeah.
I hope so. But, again, part of it is not having the swing and miss stuff. Those pitch counts pile
Hmm.
up, right? Because
Yeah.
you're dancing around, you're nibbling somewhat, and there's very few 4 pitch at bats, and there's a lot more 6 or 7 pitch at bats that add up, especially when
Yeah.
somebody singles or somebody gets on, or you're walking a guy. So I think it's gonna be interesting to see. Obviously nobody's gonna be going too much more than, I mean, heck, 5's average now, right? I mean, if they get into the 6th, um, you know, I don't wanna say you get a parade, but it's pretty close, right? I mean, 6 innings is about as far as you would ever expect, especially any of these starters to go, and
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
been surprised how often that McGreevy has been able to make 6. Now you mentioned him earlier, and so that I pulled his Savant page up, and I did not realize how bad it was. And you were absolutely right. I mean, he's given up, the max exit velocity is 116, which is in the bottom 1%.
Oof. Yeah.
His expected slugging is 577, bottom 4%. Now, his walk rate's 3.9%, which is in the top 3%. That's the only thing that's saving. I I would say that's the only thing that's saving him, but then on the flip side of that is if you were walking people a little bit more and they didn't know that you're gonna throw in the zone all the time, would they have I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. He definitely does not get and again, I like McGreevy. He had the lowest K percentage of every starter on the team last year.
Yeah.
And now he's like I mean, he's still bad, but
Yeah.
what he did last year is what the whole team is or what the whole rotation is doing now. I mean, before this week, Palante was like at 10%. And so yeah, I don't want to pick on McGreevy because they're all right there in the same boat. I mean, you mentioned it earlier, Dustin May, who probably has the best stuff
Mhm.
of any of the 5 starters. I mean, he's been better after his first 2 starts were rough, and he's been
Right.
better lately, but he's still not getting a lot of swing and miss. And so yeah, you're right. I mean, maybe a 6 game is more than a quality start for the Cardinal pitchers. It's
Yeah.
hey, you're the ace now. So
Pretty much.
yeah,
Yeah, you're right
it's
on McGreevy here. Wanted to illustrate what you were saying. 14.5% K percentage last year was in the bottom 3% of baseball. This year he's at 16.5%, and there are no bars on there. So it's about, and it's probably because there's so many other Cardinals pushing him
yeah,
out of
yeah.
that bottom percentages. But so he has been a little bit better at that rate. But man, you're right. And again, it is what it is. And if the defense is working, you just hope that there's more good days than bad days because there are going to be those days where the balls are hit all over the yard, and you just hope that there's not too many of those.
I think because of last year, I really paid close attention to his starts,
Mhm.
following the games on Savant to see how hard guys were hitting, even when they were
Yeah.
getting outs. And so I think that's why I seem like I'm picking on him more is just I paid more close attention and checking the swings and misses and things like that he's getting than the others. But yeah, he's above average for a Cardinal starter. So yeah, maybe I need to lay off of him and find another guy. And I said in the Liberatore piece, look, I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer or negative Nancy or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, but at what point do you start to worry and you know, does a Liberatore, I didn't even say this in the piece, but does a Liberatore need to go down to Memphis just to work on things? Or, is he hurt? Is that why we're saying Jordan Walker just got his fourth hit of the night, by the way? Another double.
There
Um,
you go.
but and I don't know. I think it's too early to do anything. I'm not suggesting they do anything at all, but um, I just wanted to. What's funny is I was trying to find something to write about, and everybody's talking about JJ and Rookie of the
Mhm.
Year race, and somebody put out a chart this week that had him like eighth among rookies, and so I thought everybody's talking about that. Let me talk about something else. So my piece that I did earlier in the week was kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly on the start of the season, just with some live stuff. This is the first thing that I'd written since the start of the season. And, I didn't really highlight any starter in particular, but I did bring up how the starters just weren't getting the ball by anybody and started looking more at Liberatore's numbers compared to the league and even the rest of the staff. And so kind of picked him and especially with the start tonight. So if I need to put something out every start of Libby's, I'll start doing that as well.
Well, if
Because
it's working there, you may have to do every pitcher.
yeah, I'll find time to ride every day if I have to, all for the good of the team. So
That's right. And also, that was a Jordan Walker triple, apparently.
oh,
They gave
I
him
didn't even, yeah, I
yeah.
I
So,
pulled or I stopped watching when the
yeah,
ball hit the
yeah.
the wall and didn't watch what happened.
Um,
So
yeah,
I'll
drove
take
in
that
2.
too.
Hey, definitely says it brought in 2 runs, and
Yeah,
hopefully somebody can bring him in and, make that, 8th and ninth a little less agonizing for us.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
we're running to about our time, but we gotta talk about,
The Red
the most.
Jackets.
Yeah, I mean, it was very anticlimactic,
Yeah.
obviously. We knew that was gonna happen. It was, Yachty and Albert both going in along with Bill Schertle, is that right? Is that how I said?
I'm not sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, Schertle, who was I think they said the winningest left-handed pitcher in Cardinals, or at least,
Oh, wow.
I think that's what I saw. A
Okay.
name that I'm not terribly familiar with. He's right in that, I think he's in that 30s and, uh, yeah, he was oh, no,
You
he
don't
was even
remember
before
him?
that. Yeah, no, I was waiting on you to fill in. So he spent 12
Oh,
years with the Cardinals before he was traded to Boston in 1930, so that means he was here from 1918 till or 1917 to 1929 or whatever, no, don't remember that one.
yeah.
And not and just he kinda not in that there are names from that era that we all, kinda
Hmm.
know and stuff like that, but doesn't seem like he never had quite that cachet, so I guess it's somebody need to look and read up about, I guess, over this summer, but Yachty and Albert going in again. I was just surprised that they even announced that Yachty won the fan vote. I didn't really expect that. But any thoughts about those 2?
No, I mean, obviously it's appropriate that they walked off the field in that last game together. How close they've always been. There's a part of me that expected something on Yachty getting the fan vote simply because he was the one that was here the whole time,
Yeah,
the whole
yeah,
career. And so um, I'm assuming that nobody's lying that he got the fan vote, but I'm
yeah,
not
yeah,
surprised that he got it because of that. I mean, he
right.
is he is a legend from that standpoint. And that's not to take away anything that happened with Albert. I mean, it all worked out, and you couldn't have asked for a more fitting end to his career and what he did that second half of 2022. So great to see them. Obviously Wainwright will join them next year. But these two guys, they're going to be in the Hall of Fame in a couple of years, and just monumental Cardinals. I mean, Pujols may be the best right-handed hitter you and I have seen in our long, long
Mhm.
years we've been on this earth. And Yachty's, just one of the best catchers we've ever seen. I mean,
Yeah.
you can argue, Johnny Bench or Pudge or whatever, but um, there's so many intangibles with Yachty that not surprising, but it's awesome, and I've never gone up for one of the days where guys get
Mhm.
inducted, but something I may look into this year. I looked at Brendan's article on MLB.com, which they've got to get a more up to date picture of B Shafe. It looks like it's from
Why?
when he was like 19 or so.
That's a picture from yesterday.
Is
What
it
are you talking?
really?
No, I don't know, but
I was gonna
it
say, did
probably is.
he did he
Schaefer doesn't age. He
it's
he
not
he if he grows that mustache out just to make you think that
yeah,
he's
yeah.
old enough to have kids, so,
Now,
um,
but it's fitting. Again, not surprising. What sucks is Brian Jordan's one of my favorite all-time Cardinals.
mhm,
I mean,
yeah,
when people talk about two-sport athletes and that kind of thing, I mean, he's so underrated as a baseball player, but he was an all-pro safety and just such an important. I mean, in a time where none of his teams were good,
mhm,
uh, but those years where him and Langford were kind of sandwiching McGuire were just so fun and just strong, fast, do everything. Loved him. I mean, I love George Hendrick too. Um, one of my favorite clips ever I think it may have been a World Series game, but he beats out an infield hit, and I guess there was a mic close enough, and he said, "Must have been my blazing speed." Wasn't fast, but just such a cool Cardinal in the time
mhm,
that probably you and I both were really uh, falling in love with the team. So four guys that I just love, but you know, and no disrespect, no disrespect to Jordan or Hendrick, but they weren't going to win this one.
yeah, and I think okay, look, I know they wouldn't do this, and obviously they didn't do this, but if I was in ownership, I would have bent the rule, and I would have used Wainwright as our pick,
Mm,
and I would put them all 3 in together. Now, I know they want Wainwright to have that buzz of next year and, you know, but, I mean, again, that's it, right? I mean, there's no doubt that Wainwright's they're not gonna do 2 guys in next year, right? I mean, they did 2 in this year
yeah,
because
yeah,
it was Pujols and Yachty, and
yeah.
you can't not.
Right.
Um, so Wainwright's gonna they're gonna do a fan vote next year. Wainwright's gonna win by 98%,
Right.
only for the families of probably Brian Jordan and George Hendrick who are
Yeah.
still probably on the ballot, right? Um, and so I really would have liked I mean, I know there's a lot of, ifs and ands and understand, but it would have been really nice to have them all go in. I
Yeah.
did
I agree.
see it was very, very interesting and an acknowledgement of how nuts this is gonna be. You were talking about going up for it. They're going to do a ceremony an hour before the game on whatever that day that is, and it's gonna be I mean, the ceremony's gonna be in the stadium. If you have a ticket, you get to go to the sta you
Oh
get to
yeah.
go to it,
Yeah.
because it's just I mean, there's just no way otherwise, and that may be, 42,000 people in the stands, if nothing else, for that game,
And
so
I've never really understood why they didn't do that because this is for the fans. I mean, the
yeah,
fans are voting on it.
Yeah.
I know they have their ceremony elsewhere, but this is the way they should do it every year.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah,
that's great.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I feel like it probably looks better and it probably makes the players feel better, right? If they're in a if so, because as much as I'm a big fan of Scott Rowland, um, you know, I don't know that they're filling the stadium for Scott Rowland.
sure,
And so
yeah,
then when you're over there at Ballpark Village, it looks more full because, if you're doing it when there's, 10,000 people in a 40,000 foot stadium, well, you obviously feel like you're at a Pirates game, and that doesn't make you feel any good.
yeah.
So, I feel like that's, understandable for that point of view. But
That's
yeah,
true. Yeah, that's true.
um, there is something to be said for that as well. But and having a easier access to these things.
Hmm.
But with this crowd, I mean, it would you'd never get you couldn't get everybody across the street, and you couldn't get everybody in it, and it would be chaos. So
Yeah, yeah,
I kind of wish they had just one fell swoop, bring in Wainwright,
yeah,
do it all
yeah.
at one time, and then next year you could have an interesting election because in 28, if I'm right, 28 is Matt Carpenter. Well, he's probably going to win that one, right? So then you're getting to 29, and by 29, you don't know, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
it's whoever somebody that could retire this year. I mean, if Paul Goldschmidt retired this year, Paul Goldschmidt could be on the 29 ballot. I
Hmm.
think that's right because I think it's 3 years retired, yeah, because that's what
Yeah, yeah.
Pujols and so that you could be, pushing some of these other guys out for even longer, which again depends on how if you want to be a big haul or a small haul guy or whatever the case
Mhm.
may be. But I think it would have been nice to at least have a little bit of, hey, I'm voting on something instead of a coronation about a Wainwright next year.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's a great point about Wainwright. I hadn't thought of it, but now that you say it, I wish they had done that. That would have been
Yeah,
great. I think it would
yeah,
have meant a lot to Wainwright too. I think he would prefer that over getting in by himself.
yeah. I mean, he did help them out by, playing one more year so that they didn't have to worry about it, I guess.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
and I mean, these guys will be there when he goes in. So,
Oh yeah, yeah.
it's
I mean,
kind of like his retirement ceremony was the year after, with Yachty showed up for that. So,
sure.
didn't
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
have a basketball game to go to.
They are
Um,
brothers. Yadi will
Very
will
true.
mention that many, many times.
Yep. Yeah, that's quite a relationship. There is no doubt
Yeah.
about it. So,
Yeah.
all right.
Hey,
Go ahead.
real quick, I
Yeah.
want to say this, how upset I am with MLB.com
Okay.
and for getting rid of our shirtless buddy this week. Um, that really irks me because if anybody deserves their flowers and their recognition, it's Kyle Reese. And
Yeah.
he's tremendous when he comes on here. One of my favorite episodes every spring is when you have him on, and of course everybody loves Kyle. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was tough to see this week. So love you, Kyle. Um, I would say that I did this without my shirt on in your honor, but nobody wants to think about that. So
This kind of makes me think of you remember because it was back in 21 because they were doing Zoom calls and stuff like that, and
yeah,
Albert had just gotten released, Nolan had ended his conference by saying, how much he loved Albert Pujols and,
mm,
all that kinda stuff. I don't know if you remember that one or not, but,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, that guy had the same feel to it. If yeah,
Uh, so
it was disappointing, but it's also I mean, Kyle will tell you. Kyle told us when he started, it was kind of
it was
inevitable, and,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
um,
But
I
but
yeah,
nobody knows the minors like he does or cares about
no,
it like he does, and it was great to see, love that B Shafe is getting his time there and Josh too. But yeah, that I'm boycotting, I guess, for even though I don't spend any money with MLB.com, but you know,
it has been
just wanted to profess my
yeah,
love for Kyle.
right. And I mean, if anybody doesn't know, I think you should because if you're listening to this, you're following Kyle, and if you're following Kyle, you've obviously seen it. But he does, he's still on Wednesday with Walton Reese,
Yeah,
and it's a very good podcast to listen
yeah,
to. for Miners Talk. And, it's 30 to 45 minutes, closer to 45 most weeks. And they'll get into all lots of things that are going on in all levels. So if
Not
you're
as
not doing
many
that,
not as
yeah.
many puns as when he's on with you, but
No, but I'm working on Brian. I think Brian will get there. I'll see about that. Um, and of course, Cardinal Nation, Brian's stuff is over there, but they're
yeah,
using some things
yeah,
from Kyle as well. So, a lot of good stuff there
a
as
lot of
well.
good people in
But
the Cardinal space.
yeah,
So
I
room
guess
for
we should
everybody.
also mention that this series is the Katie Wu Invitational, as Katie is
Yeah,
backing it down, and as, Twitter
the
has noticed.
the unreplaceable Katie Wu.
It seems like it, and that's I know that, she was on with the Redbird Rundown. I think that was
Mm.
I know Scott Plaza had done the interview.
Oh, okay, yeah.
They asked me if I could, and it got rescheduled, so I was coming back from Fayetteville. I couldn't make it. I would have liked to,
Oh, yeah.
but I assume that they asked her. I haven't listened to the interview. They may not have asked her on air either about that. But I know Katie has said, and then of course Jeremy Rutherford came along a few months ago saying the Athletic was looking for a writer over there, that was supposedly a priority for them.
Mm,
That being said, they put out an ad for the Braves writer, and they just now filled that. So
mm,
maybe they're taking that process, but it's been a good year to write about this stuff. And it would have been nice to have extra, because especially, again, John Denton leaves MLB, and you're right, Schaefer and Josh Jacobs have gone in there, and Josh is doing, a little bit more column writing, but there's not even Schaefer, I don't think, is writing like daily over
no,
there
no,
with the
he's
sideline
not
reporter.
traveling at
Right.
least to every
He
game,
went to Pittsburgh, but
But
yeah,
yeah,
he
right,
doesn't
right.
typically. He doesn't typically. Will Leach is writing once a week, and that's nice as well.
Oh,
But
yeah,
it's,
yeah.
it's
Well,
not the same.
Katie was amazing.
Yeah,
And
Katie
I
was fun.
think more so because she made herself so available. She made herself available to you and to other podcasts, and was a good representation of the reporting on MLB Network and
Mhm.
radio shows in St. Louis. And just we could tell she was a star in the making, and that she'd go on to bigger things. And she's a California girl, and everybody's happy for her. So good for that. And listen, I've listened to Danny Wexelman for many years.
Mm,
On she's on Sirius XM,
yeah,
their MLB channel. I think she's still doing some of that.
yeah,
And
seems to be.
so yeah, and I tell you what, and this is a change where her or Jim Hayes are in the dugout during games. And so
Mhm.
and I'm sure you saw the thing that she did with John Jay in Houston, walking around the
Yeah,
outfield.
yeah.
I mean, she's very good and knows Major League Baseball as well as anybody else that's doing what she's doing. So she's a great addition that I don't think people have seen enough of her yet, maybe. But we lost Katie. Gonna miss Katie always, but Danny's been a good pickup. Different space, obviously, and
Mhm.
the the TV and radio side. But yeah, good to see Katie back. I've seen pictures of her from different people on Twitter tonight. So
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of that. Yeah, Danny's been good. I that is the problem with the sideline reporter. How much this show is a Jim Hayes supporter.
oh yeah, yeah,
And
and that's
but you
one of
don't
my
get to.
favorite shows of the spring too. Was
Yeah,
was him being on? Yeah, he's great.
Jim's great.
Yeah.
Um, and very generous with his time. But the sideline reporter doesn't really get to dig into some things. You know what I'm saying? It's
Hmm.
a different type of, it's interviews, it's good stuff, it's very interesting and often entertaining, but it's not the long form like the writing of articles and things of that nature. It would be interesting, especially with Danny's background, for her to be the color on a play by,
Hmm.
maybe not with Chip, you know, maybe one of these games where they've got Stephon coming in or whatever, but, I would be interested. It would be um, an interesting change
Yeah,
to let
yeah,
her, 'cause I think that would be a place where she could show a little bit more of what she has than the interviews are good, and you're right, those like the pregame stuff with John Jay and all that kind of stuff, that's kinda more in line with that, but,
hmm,
during the game, you've only got they'll throw it to you for 2 minutes or something like that.
yeah,
That's all you
yeah,
do.
yep, I
So,
agree. Yeah, give an alternative younger broadcast. Is that what you're
yeah,
trying to say? Not have
I
Chip
mean,
and
I mean, and it just, we if we get into the broadcast, we'll be here another half an hour probably. It's pretty good. I wanna say. I don't wanna say it's terrible, and I've really appreciated the MLB, you know, takeover, if you will.
yeah,
I
I
don't like
agree.
the betting odds on it,
I
but,
don't I don't like the Car Shield commercials. I'm going to be honest
yeah,
there.
yeah,
Well, one former player in particular.
well,
So
I mean, it took me a while to realize Tino was on there, but the Eric Burns ones are a little bit more over the top, so I don't know that either
that's what.
one of them works.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the one I'm talking about.
okay.
So,
I mean, Tino does not exactly have the best reputation in St. Louis, so
well,
it
that's
could have gone either
yeah.
way.
I was not
Um,
a fan of that signing or the entire time he was here, but I'll listen to him talking about his defense or whatever he talks about on there
yeah.
every day, all day over Eric Burns.
That is fair. That is fair, but, the broadcast has been okay.
Yeah.
Um, like I said, I don't need the betting stuff, but that's unfortunately where we are in society today.
Oh gosh, yeah.
But I just think there are Chip and Mark Sweeney work really well together.
Hmm.
Uh, when we saw Brad on the national broadcast on Peacock, he was great, and Brad's great. I mean, I like Brad, but I don't know that how much I like Chip and Brad together sometimes.
It's more of
Um,
a I don't want to say Laurel and Hardy necessarily, but
yeah,
it's
'cause
almost like a comedy team up there
yeah.
too often.
It
And it's fine. I mean,
yeah.
there's times where they're not even trying to be funny, and Brad's very quick witted,
Yes,
but
yes.
it's sometimes it's too much,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
I
maybe that's the
I
old men in us speaking.
I think I've seen enough people, I don't think it's just that.
Yeah,
I just think the hijinks, it takes away from it. I mean, what with MLB.com or with MLB TV, you can watch other broadcasts around the league,
hmm,
and I've found a lot of them to be very, informative, and they're still entertaining, but they're not I don't know, they're just not goofy or whatever the case may be, and
yeah,
maybe at
yeah,
least not as on a regular, and, um, I don't know. I think that, again, a lot of times they're good, but I don't know. And I also think there is a tendency there has been for a long, long time of the broadcast being a little bit more positive and less realistic. Um, I think you listen to other broadcasts and they will point out when something's going wrong a little bit
hmm,
more than this one will, and then that's not necessarily their fault, that because that's those instructions can come from on high,
right,
and that has been even Danny would occasionally, but even then, not that much, I don't think.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so, but overall, I mean, I'm glad it's streaming in market now. We can actually watch it. And I'm glad that the team's been good enough to be enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad that especially people like you that haven't been able to always get games have that access. We looked at doing that, but they added it to DirecTV, so we get it on a new channel there.
Nice, nice.
Um, I was kind of looking forward to doing it where I could watch some of these other games, teams that we like to. And there's, like you said, there's some really good broadcasters out there. But
Yeah.
no, I think uh, I mute a lot when it comes to the
Mhm.
commercials. I'll say
Yeah.
that. But
I will, and to be fair, I run the mute a lot, even on any. I do it on the broadcast, but that's not because of Chip and Brad necessarily. It's more of I've got it on while we're in the family room while we're doing other
yeah,
things, or
yeah,
I'm doing something, I'm keeping an eye on it, but I don't necessarily need the sound.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's some of that as well. All right, well, Richard, you have mentioned a couple of times your Substack. What exactly? Where is? I know I've got it linked on mine, but what's the actual address?
I don't know. I think you could look up Playing Catch. And so it's Playing Catch, a St. Louis Cardinal, I think father and son, something. I don't know. It's not podcast anymore. But you can also look me up, just Richard McGill. I mean, I've got it pulled up, Richard McGill 23. So
Yeah.
you can find them either way there. And then I'll always link to those on the Playing Catch Twitter, which is at Playing Catch Pod, at least right now. So didn't change it from when we stopped doing the podcast, but again, never know. We may revive it. So
that would be cool.
Yeah.
Would be
So
cool.
yeah, appreciate. I mean, Substack is free. I'm not in this to make any money. I'm not good enough to do it. But if you want some boomer thoughts that aren't your typical boomer thoughts, then yeah, feel free. And I'll thank you because I think I've got a lot of people subscribe to me from your Substack. So again, not
I'm
getting
glad to
anything
follow.
out of it. Yeah, but I had a lot of additions at one point, so I think that came from your side.
Well, I hope so because it's good, and I try to read them when I see them. I don't always catch it, but I
Yeah,
usually
no.
do, and they're always interesting. I think you and again, I know you're trying to recruit the boy into this, and hopefully you'll be able to do that and give another voice to that as well. And people should check that out. We'll have a link in the show notes here, and we'll probably put the link out when we're broadcasting this show. So. Richard, it has been fun always.
Always.
I look
Yep.
forward to doing it again either next year or maybe even before.
Hey, I'm always happy to come in after the big guest. So.
Well, I try to get the media folks out of the way because especially early in the year they got to get back down to Jupiter and stuff. They get busy, but it's always fun.
Yeah, it's always fun. Love talking to you. Love listening to you and Alan, and wish him well here at the end of things, and hope the playoffs go well for them.
Yep, hopefully so. All right. Well, next week we have Tyler. You'll know him as Redbird Farmhands. We'll be talking the minors again with him. So until next week, for Richard, I'm Daniel. Good night.
The final time, Adam Wainwright, Yadier Molina in regular season play. Here it comes. All of them coming out. 3 icons in franchise history, spanning over 2 decades. Excellence here with St. Louis, as Adam said to Yadi and Albert, you guys go first.